Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Alane Boyd. Hi, Alane.
Hi.
So great to have you on this podcast. And before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to our mutual connection, friend, EO member, Marina Berzhikova, that referred us, that introduced us. And she is the leader, Brand of a Leader. That's her company. She's the CEO, founder, leader of Brand of a Leader. And she is just an incredible human being. I've done a podcast with her. She's been on my podcast. I will definitely include it in the show notes. And definitely a big shout out to Marina for introducing us. Thank you.
Love her so much.
You know, she's amazing. And so here is, and you are amazing as well. So I'm going to read your bio. It's very short, but there is a lot, definitely. So you're a serial entrepreneur. You exited several SaaS companies. You founded and exited several SaaS companies. And you are a workflow automation expert with over 20 years of experience in that area. You're super smart. You have a master's degree in mathematics, which is incredible. And also in administration and management. And obviously, you know, if whomever wants to know more about you, they can go to your LinkedIn profile and definitely see all your accomplishments, which are very, very incredible. So first of all, well done on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get started with being a serial entrepreneur? Where did that start?
Oh gosh. Well, when I was young, I just wanted to be the boss and wear cute outfits. That was my goal in life. And so what that looked like, I didn't care. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He owned an insurance agency. And so that was just kind of part of our lives. Is I got to see him be so flexible. He picked us up from school. He took us to our sporting events and just made this great life for himself and for us. And so as my journey, when I graduated from college, and I just didn't like working for other people. I wanted to do things a little bit different. And so I started a couple of really small companies just in my kind of niche that I was in. I have an engineering degree as well. I really like school. So I was really good at it. And so I graduated with an engineering degree and quickly just figured out like I am not going to work for somebody. And I came up with my first idea for a business from there and evolved. You know, life changes, your connections change. And I met my now business partner that we have built multiple companies and sold them together.
That's amazing. Absolutely incredible. So, and now tell us about your company that you have right now.
So this one got started so organically because after I sold my company, the depression and lack of purpose that encompassed every moment of my life just depleted me as a person. Like I was depleted energy wise and stress wise from building that company and selling it. But then after you don't have that and your whole community is gone, like I sold that company and people that I was friends with, I didn't keep in touch with. I didn't have my VP to call every morning and put together our operation plan. And without those things, I just was really lost. And depression, really, one of my lowest points in life was the time that I'm retired. And so I thought, man, what did I really enjoy about my company that I built? And it was the processes and the automation that I put in place. And so my business partner and he also was struggling with depression after selling. And we thought maybe other people need those systems. And so we just kind of started consulting real, just referral based and built the company. And after I was suffering from chronic stress. I had developed an autoimmune disease from that. And when I could manage my flare-ups and I wasn't experiencing those flare-ups as much as when I was like, okay, I have let my body rest and heal. I can start slowly building my company and make it into what I really enjoy, which is having a team to do the work.
That is fantastic. So how did you go about that?
I so we started joining groups. We mentioned EO. So and that EO, I've only been a member for 3 years. I didn't even know about it. And I think, my God, if I would have had this experience when I was growing my other company, I wouldn't have been so depressed and I wouldn't have been so isolated. And
Right,
so
because you have your group of other entrepreneurs. So I think that is an important part of talking to other entrepreneurs about it, is that you, like when it's you at the top and you don't have anybody to talk to, you feel isolated. But then
yeah.
if you actually build that group and you are part of that group, that makes a huge difference.
Oh my gosh, it has changed my life, and I will be a member for life because when you lack that community, then you're just so isolated. So I started joining some groups. There's a couple of other business ones I'm in, like Goldman Sachs has one called 10,000 Small Businesses, and a lot of it was referral based. And we started it. I'm a huge project management advocate. So having a tool for project management. So we started. I built my company using Asana. It was a well-oiled machine. I had documentation, SOPs. We could hire and fire somebody, and somebody could be in that position in 10 minutes because we had everything documented. And then I built automation so we didn't have to do so many manual things. Well, we were building in Asana, ClickUp, and Monday early on. Those were the three project management systems. And then doing some automation along with it, like if you're using Pipedrive or HubSpot CRM, when you mark the deal as one, well, that automatically can kick off new client onboarding and ClickUp, Asana, or Monday. So we were building some other automations that built in with the work management systems. And that has evolved so much when AI started coming out and how we incorporated AI into the workflow. And then now with AI agents, it is blowing my mind what we can do with AI agents. And I know you have some episodes on that. And I was listening to it and just like tickled to death that people are talking about this more and more.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, and we speak the same language. I mean, we use as well. I mean, we used to use Asana, now we use ClickUp internally. I just got off a phone call with a client that we document the processes, and they use Monday and figure out the automation. It's incredible what it can do. I mean, it's that conveying how much processes lead to freedom. That
Mm-hmm.
is so important. So from your perspective, because you've done it all, you've helped clients and you also did it internally for yourself. What would you say to an entrepreneur that says, well, processes are not for me. They're just going to stifle my creativity, or they're going to block me, or they're going to prevent me from doing what I want to do?
Yeah. Well, my internal thought is, wow, you're an immature leader because you
This
have
is what
not
I really think.
That's
Okay.
what I really think. And that happens. And I just had to learn, like, my ego needs to stay out, and they're on their own journey. But if you really want to get out of the day to day, if you want to lead your company and have accountability for your team and have a place where work happens, that project management system is the core of it. Like, I cannot understand a company that doesn't see the value in that piece, because that is where you have the accountability and you have templates, and you're not just a chaotic system. When I got purchased in 2018, the company, you always hear like, oh, when I lifted the hood, the company was like chaotic and disarray. Like every company that was looking at us was like, oh my God, we have never seen a company that has every system in place. And if you really want to get, like, the company could operate without me, but the company that purchased us said, we need that here. Because what happens for a leader that doesn't value this, what you're doing is investing in chaos and people, and you have employee turnover.
Right.
Because you don't value that as a system, even though it doesn't feel like it's important, it weighs on the organization. And the more you grow and the more people you throw at it, the more problems you're going to have. And you see the result of employees don't last more than a year, that
Right.
they are eating time going back and forth asking questions, that when you have an employee leave, you are strained and your team is strained because they're having to go and dig and ask, and there's just so much waiting time happening.
That is so true. How much do you think you, like, in terms of percent or multipliers, in terms of how much more do you think you can get for a company, like a range, because you have well-documented processes and procedures?
At a minimum, it saves 20 minutes per day per employee. And that's a very small team, because if you have, 8 people in a department, how much back and forth, that can be 2 hours a day per employee decreased, where they can just get in and get their work done.
Right. Absolutely. And in terms of selling, like how much do you think the value increases because of documentation?
Oh gosh, this is a big one. I love the sales side of an organization, and that's where I tend to lean. And I'll tell you the most, I say the like pissed off, but I wasn't like really pissed at anybody other than just time being eaten alive, is from sales handoff to client onboarding. It was taking my team 2 hours to do. And we had a full-time admin doing new client onboarding. 2 hours per client. And I'm going, oh my gosh, and that's when I
That's
wrote
for a
like,
SaaS company.
that is for a SaaS. Well, we had a services side. So there was this dual side. But for there's so many of those things. The client does not benefit for those 2 hours. And where does it fall in the backlog of work to do? Just because it took 2 hours does not mean it happened that moment. You're fit into the workflow of when that person had the time to do it, which is not that exact second. So it could take a week to onboard the client. Whereas if you had that automated, the value goes up immediately, because as soon as they sign that contract, then everything else automatically happens. The Dropbox folder gets created, a draft welcome email gets created, the client project in ClickUp gets created. Like all these things can happen that didn't need a person to do. And you want to invest your time in the relationship with the person, not doing all the things on the back end that they don't care about and they don't see.
Right. Right. I mean, that's very true. So let's take the onboarding process. That's a very interesting one. So client signs the contract, probably also like immediately as you get the contract signed, it automatically, let's say you use Pipedrive or another CRM, you win it, then immediately it can automatically create the file in QuickBooks. So the payment gets accepted, then it creates the client folder in ClickUp, and everything else just falls into place.
Yeah. And we noticed that one was a popular one because people want clients more than anything, and they want to, have that value there early on. So that was one of our most common ones that we integrated. And now we've built on that. So it's automated proposal generation from a transcript, and be able to use templates in PandaDoc to say, hey, this is what the customer is saying. And then the AI agent knows to pick that template, and then it takes their words and repurposes it based on what you do. It's not like creating something that you don't do, but it's matching based on the services or the products you provide. And then we get feedback like, wow, you really heard me on that call.
Yeah, it's true. But Alane, when do you actually need humans on that? Because we like you generate a proposal, and sometimes I can tell you it happened to me when he generated a proposal, and then I sent it to a client, and I was going over with him and go, oh, I didn't really promise that was the AI. So at what point? And I was like, since then we definitely qualify what we send out, but
Yeah.
so at what point do you actually use humans in that process?
Oh yeah, such a great question. In all pieces of it, like there needs to be a human validation step. I think that's super important. I think with any of the automations, it gets us 80 to 90% of the way there. And then we still are the creative strategic expert in this.
Yeah.
And building the process is so important with what you do, is to identify where is the human needed. Well, we can have the automation generate the proposal, but then a validation step needs to be to review it before it gets sent. Or in new client onboarding, all of the, software pieces, all the checklists, all the things can get done, but you're the one that really understands the project and needs
Right.
to make sure that the right information goes into that client project in there.
Absolutely, that's so important, because the thing is that clicking on when you start clicking and start creating folders and putting things in there and making sure that all the notes are transferred from one to another, that can be automated for sure, but you do have that human validation. I agree, that is 100%. Now, another question for you. So I hear sometimes people say, well, I'm going to just automate my business. And I said, well, okay, you got to have your processes document. You have to have the workflows documented first, because otherwise you are not going to be able to know what to automate. And if it really, maybe you can automate something, but it will save you 5 minutes as opposed to decide to automate something else that will save you an hour. And if you don't have, none of us have unlimited resources. Even if we're doing extremely well, you still want to use your resources in order to create more and not necessarily just to, waste them. What would you say to that?
I mean, 1000%. And we had to learn that for ourselves the hard way. When we started working with clients, and the client would be like, I have this super easy process I want to automate. I want us to do this, this, and this. And we would skip the process mapping part of it and understanding the process. And we would go and build it for the client. And then the client would go, oh, I forgot this, and this part. Okay, then we'd circle back and add this and this and this part. And then they go, oh, you know what? So a project then that could have lasted 4 weeks now took 3 months. And having and actually there's another piece of this too. We no longer work on a process that has not been done manually yet, meaning that there's no process yet. And the process has to be, and if they don't have it documented, we force them to document it in the beginning because it saves 10x the time. And it's consistent across every single scenario, every single thing. You have to know your process. If you don't have it documented, then we will work with you on that. But we're not automating anything until we have a clear definition of what we're building.
Amen. I can tell you, I'm an engineer as well. I'm an industrial engineer. And I remember the first job that I got, I was a freshly graduated out of college, and I was working at an international consulting company, and we were doing a project for Mitsubishi, and there was the software engineer and there was me as the industrial engineer. And he goes, I'm not writing any code. I'm not doing anything until you actually give me all the workflows, because otherwise it just becomes so rigid with the software, and then you have to adapt your process to the software. And that is the problem that we're running into. So even with AI, it's not going to replace identifying the process. And I'm so glad you said that, because those are always my words. It's like when people are trying to identify, this process and how would it work with the software, I said, you know what? I always like to give the analogy of what will happen if it was in the real world, right? I mean, if you actually had file folders here and you had to put paper in each one of them, how would you sort it, right? Because it definitely takes much more effort and thinking about putting papers in a physical folder as opposed to in the computer. You can just put it in the computer, you can just file whatever, wherever you want to, and then it becomes a mess. So you have to really envision like, if it was the real world, like actual world, and do it physically, how would you do it? It doesn't mean you have to go do it, but you have to think that way, because then we use the symbols, which is the computer, in order to symbolize it, or in order to obviously automate it, and then we use the automation. So that is so true.
Yeah. I mean, I love everything that you just said. And when you have that as a starting place, then you can start identifying, we call it a future state. Like, what's the future state going to look like?
That's right.
And we start mapping out, well, this part could be automated. This part is still manual, meaning a human needs to be a part of it. And then they have a clear outlook on what is the process going to look like? Do they like it? Do they approve it? Will it work? And then they can start seeing, okay, there's an automated piece and there's still a human piece. And that's where I think the best parts are, because their biggest fear I hear too a lot is AI going to replace me? And I'm always like, no. Is it going to replace parts of your job? Yeah. And hopefully it's the parts you don't like. Like, who likes doing data management? Nobody. Nobody wants to take stuff out of the CRM and re-put it into ClickUp. Like, that's boring.
Right. And and that will just force all of us to elevate and get to the next level. Critical thinking is the one that is going to be very much, an asset for an employee, because then it can be used. Or, there has to be the human quality control part, as we discussed. I mean, you have to figure out, you can't just spit something out of AI and send it. It's never safe. It's a hit and miss, and sometimes it can get you into trouble. And I'm sure we all did that. As I told you that example, I was like, oh, I just promised that client that. Well, maybe, oh, okay. So I got out of that, but that was it. I learned my lesson. There was never again. No matter how much, if you're in a hurry or you think it looks well, I mean, you have to read it several times from your own perspective and understand that. or ask the AI questions. I mean, look at it from this
Mm-hmm.
perspective. What do you see that is missing? You know, it's kind of like you can always use the AI as well
Mm-hmm.
to prompt it correctly. That's the thing. It's like we all will need to know how to prompt, how to, I mean, it would be basically great if we know how to create the AI agents, you know, and how to use the AI in order to
Mm-hmm.
serve itself and qualify itself so you know that the output was correct.
Oh, I love that you just brought this up because there is a part where nothing is stagnant. And so, you're prompting and you're kind of learning like, okay, what is the right kind of prompt? Okay, now we know what we're going to give the AI agent to be a part of the automated process. But that can evolve too as you're using it, and maybe your service changes or the way that you do your process changes. And so knowing how to prompt and knowing how to use the tools, then you can go and update that AI agent so it continues to output what you want it to have, and not just, I mean, I'm sure you see this as like, well, it's part of the process and we don't use that anymore, so we're just going to delete that or close that out. I'm like, you spend more time doing that than just updating what the automation needs to do or the
That's
template.
exactly right. Yeah. And as we know, it evolves so fast. If you don't really understand that, if something changes, then you're stuck because you're stuck in a technology that maybe it was 2 months ago, but it's equivalent to before it was like years, you know,
Mhm,
advanced, it's such an advancement that we can't really afford that. That's
mhm.
absolutely right. Wow, we knew we were going to have an amazing conversation, and we did. And hopefully, our listeners were getting in there with us. They're going, okay, those two ladies here are like geeking out on this one, but it's
Yeah,
awesome. That's what we
it's
like, right? I mean,
it
that's what we
is.
thrive.
It's why we do what we do.
That's right. So, Alane, if people want to find out about you, find out more about you, they want to contact you, how can they do that?
So I'm really active on LinkedIn. It's Alane Boyd. And then my company is biggestgoal.ai. And also we have a lot of free tools on our website. So we have, if you're wondering what automations could be in place, we have something where you put in your software and it spits out 25 automation ideas. We have free courses and different things on there that's available on the website.
That's awesome. Okay, well, we'll include that in the show notes. And thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. That's been a fantastic conversation.
I agree. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.